are under judgment, and he then quotes from Proverbs 11:31 LXX, warning them of the danger of disobedience. He here implies that their present judgment could end with a judgment of everlasting destruction for them, just as Paul had written. 1 Pe 4:17-18. The Apostle Paul also tells of some who will undergo the judicial punishment of everlasting destruction from before the Lord and from the glory of his strength, at the time he comes to be glorified in connection with his holy ones. 2 Th 1:9-10. These would therefore not survive into the 1,000-year reign of Christ, and since their destruction is everlasting, they would receive no resurrection. Resurrection during 1,000 years. The exact number of humans who have ever lived is unknown to humans. However, by way of illustration, if Jehovah resurrects 20,000,000,000,000,000 people, there would be no problemo textoi acute miritra longo. Retirement 793 of them did not in the past know God and must learn to conform to his laws for them. First, the Bible states that the kingdom of the world becomes the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he rules as king forever and ever. Re 11:15. And the Bible principle is that when there are judgments from you Jehovah for the earth, righteousness is what the inhabitants of the productive land will certainly learn. Isra 26:9. In his due time, when it is necessary to make it known to his servants, God will reveal how he purposes to take care of this work. And 3:7. How would it be possible in 1,000 years to resurrect and educate the billions now in the grave? Nevertheless, an illustration reveals what a simple, practical thing Jehovah has in mind for mankind. Not to prophesy, but merely for the purpose of illustration, let us assume that those who compose the great crowd of righteous persons who come out of the great tribulation on this system of things alive Ray 7:9-14 number about 6,000-000 about 1/1000 of Earth's present population. Then if, after allowing, say, 100 years spent in their training and in subduing a portion of the earth ge 1:28, God purposes to bring back 3% of this number, this would mean that each newly arrived person would be looked after by 33 trained ones. Since a yearly increase of 3%, compounded, doubles the number about every 24 years, the entire 20,000,000,000 could be resurrected before 400 years of Christ's 1,000-year reign had elapsed, giving ample time for training and judging the resurrected ones without disrupting harmony and order on earth. Thus God, with his almighty power and wisdom, is able to bring his purpose to glorious conclusion fully within the framework of the laws and arrangements he has made for mankind from the beginning, with the added undeserved kindness of the resurrection. Row 11:33-36. Retirement. Withdrawal from one's employment or from certain aspects of it. In assigning the Levites not of the priestly family of Aaron to serve at the tent of meeting under the direction of the priests, Jehovah made loving provisions for their welfare. He commanded Moses. This is what applies to the Levites. From 25 years old upward he will come to enter into the company in the service of the tent of meeting. But after the age of 50 years he will retire from the service company and serve no longer. And he must minister to his brothers in the tent of meeting in taking care of the obligation, but he must render no service. New 8:23-26. 1 Ch 23:3. At Numbers chapter 4 the service organization of the Levites is described. There it is stated that they were to be registered from the ages of 30 to 50. It was heavy manual labor to set up, take down, and transport the tent of meeting. The 96 socket pedestals of silver for the panel frames weighed a talent c. 34 kilograms. 92 pounds each. There were also 4 pedestals for the pillars between the holy and most holy compartments, of probably the same weight, and 5 copper pedestals for the pillars at the tabernacle entrance. X 26. 19, 21, 25, 32, 37, 38. 27 The 48 panel frames 4.5 meters 4.6 feet long. 67 centimeters 26 inches wide were made of acacia, a finer grained, heavy wood, which was gold-plated. X 26. 15-25, 29 There were gold-plated bars running lengthwise on each side and across the back of the tabernacle. X 26. 26-29 All these items would be heavy. Additionally, there was the considerable weight of the coverings of sealskin, ram skin, goat hair, and linen, as well as the linen screen around the courtyard, with its pillars, socket pedestals, tent pins, and so forth. So the handling of the tabernacle o textoi acute miritra longo, retribution 794, because at the temple more would be needed to care for the greatly enlarged services there. 1 ch 23. 24-27. The Levites who retired at the age of 50 did not retire from all service. They could still serve voluntarily and minister to their brothers in the tent of meeting in taking care of the obligation. New 8. 26 Probably they served as counselors and assisted in caring for some of the lighter work included in the obligation of the Levites, but they were spared the heavier work. And they were still teachers of the law to the people. 33. 8-10. 2 ch 35. 3 Those of their number who lived in the cities of refuge were helpfully to those taking refuge there. The Christian ministry. Those who become spiritual brothers of Jesus Christ and footstep followers of his are termed a royal priesthood. Heb 2. 10-12. 1 Pe 2. 9 For these, there is no provision for retirement. The Apostle Paul was active in his ministry while in prison and continued steady ministerial activity until he was put to death. Act 28. 30, 31. 2 T 4. 6, 7 Peter was active to the end of his life. 2 P 1. 13-15 John wrote his Gospel and 3 canonical letters at an extremely old age, in about 98 CE. The great crowd, who was seen by John after the vision of the 144,000 sealed ones, are said to be rendering God sacred service day and night, or continually. There is therefore no retirement from God's service for any Christian. Re 7. 4, 9, 15. Retribution. The dispensing or receiving of reward or punishment according to the just deserts of the individual or the group. That given or exacted in recompense, especially for evil. Variants of, or words drawn from, the Hebrew root verbs shah lam and ga are translated reward, recompense, retribution, due treatment, repay, pay back, and so forth. The Greek me, and me, and related words are similarly translated. To the nations that oppressed Israel. In the song Moses gave to Israel on the plains of Moab just before his death, he described Jehovah as one who pays back vengeance to his adversaries and who renders retribution to those that intensely hate him. 32. 35, 41. Heb 10. 30 The vengeance and the retribution are executed by God in complete self-control, in full harmony with his justice and never without abundant cause. For example, he punished Israel for disobedience, sometimes using pagan nations such as Assyria and Babylon as his instruments. 28. 15-68. 2 Chi 17. 7-23. 2 ch 21. 14-20 But, on their part, these pagan nations acted out of hatred for Jehovah and his true worship, and they went too far in exulting over Israel's defeat and in oppressing Israel. Consequently God uttered judgments of retribution upon them. Issa 10. 12. 34. 1, 2, 8. Jah 51. 6, 56. Ob 8-16. Zeg 1. 15. Babylon in particular suffered retribution for her age-old enmity against Jehovah and his people. Downfall and complete desolation were prophesied against her. She was overthrown by Cyrus the Persian in 539 BCE but continued to exist as a city for centuries, finally falling into utter desolation, never to be rebuilt. Chaps 50, 51 Symbolic Babylon the Great is to suffer like retribution, being thrown down never to be found again. Re 18. 2, 6, 20, 21. See Babylon the Great. Under the law. God's law to Israel given through Moses was one of exact retribution, although mercy was extended to the unwitting and repentant sinner. The 5. 4-6, 17-19. 6. 1-7. New 35. 22-29 But the law of retribution applied fully to the deliberate and unrepentant violator. New 15. 30 In cases in which a man acted as a false witness, giving lying testimony against a fellow man before the judges, he was to receive retribution, the exact punishment that he would have caused the innocent man to receive. Jehovah said, "And your eye should not feel sorry. Soul will be for soul, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hanto textoi acute miritra longo." Reuben 795 Nigh with justice. How shall we escape if we have neglected a salvation of such greatness in that it began to be spoken through our Lord and was verified for us by those who heard him? Heb 2. 3, ftn. Compare Heb 10. 28-31. The judgment of destruction upon the apostate man of lawlessness furnishes an example of such retribution. 2th 3, 9, 10. See man of lawlessness. New companion. Friend. Son of Peleg and father of Serug. A link in the genealogy between Shem and Abraham. 1ch1. 24-27 Ur, who lived 239 years 2239 to 2000 BCE, was also an ancestor of Jesus Christ. GE 11. 18-21. Lu 3. 35. Reuben C., a son. 1. The firstborn of Jacob's 12 sons. His mother was Jacob's less favored wife, Leah, who named her boy Reuben, because, to quote her, "Jehovah has looked upon my wretchedness, in that now my husband will begin to love me." GE 29. 30-32. 35. 23. 46. 8. X1. 1, 2. 1ch2. 1 As a result of Jehovah's continued favor on his mother, Reuben and his 5 full brothers Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun constituted half of the original tribal heads of Israel. The other 6 Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher were Reuben's half-brothers. GE 35. 23-26. Some of Reuben's good qualities displayed themselves when he persuaded his 9 brothers to throw Joseph into a dry well instead of killing him, Reuben intending to return secretly and deliver Joseph out of the well. GE 37. 18-30 More than 20 years later, when these same brothers reasoned that the spy charges against them down in Egypt were due to their mistreatment of Joseph, Reuben reminded the others that he had not shared in their plot on Joseph's life. GE 42. 9-14, 21, 22 Again, when Jacob refused to let Benjamin accompany his brothers on their second trip to Egypt, it was Reuben who offered his own 2 sons as surety, saying, "You may put them to death if I do not bring Benjamin back to you." GE 42. 37. As the firstborn son of Jacob, Reuben naturally had the rights of the firstborn son of the family. As such, he was entitled to 2 portions in the estate that his father Jacob left behind. At the time just before Jacob's death, when he blessed his sons, the question was, would Reuben come into these rights of the firstborn? Also, the patriarch Jacob, as head of the family, had acted as Jehovah's priest for the whole family and had offered up sacrifices at the family altar and had led in prayer and in giving religious instruction. As father, he had also acted as the governor of the whole family and of all its servants, its livestock, and its properties. Would these responsibilities devolve upon Reuben? Jacob dealt with Reuben first, saying, "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my vigor and the beginning of my generative power, the excellence of dignity and the excellence of strength. With reckless license like waters, do not you excel, because you have gone up to your father's bed. At that time you profaned my lounge." He went up to it. GE 49. 3, 4. Jacob recalled a disqualification for Reuben that affected his future privileges. Reuben had disgraced his father. He had committed incestuous immorality with his father's concubine, Bilhah, the maidservant of Jacob's beloved wife Rachel. This was shortly after Rachel died following her giving birth to Benjamin. The Bible record does not explain whether firstborn Reuben violated the maidservant Bilhah to prevent her from taking Rachel's place in Jacob's affection, thus becoming more favored than Reuben's mother Leah, or whether Reuben acted out of sheer lust for Bilhah. It simply says, "And it came about while Israel was tabernacling in that land that once Reuben went and lay down with Bilhah his father's concubine, and Israel got to hear of it." GE 35. 22. The Greek Septuagint adds, "And it appeared evil in his sight." GE 35. 21. LXX, Thompson. Reuben was not disowned and cast out for this. It was years later, o textoi acute miritra longo. Reuben 796 experience in Yuma rated 46,500 Reubenites fit for military service, 20 years old and upward. About 39 years later this force, now 43,730, was somewhat less. New 1. 2, 3, 20, 21. 26. 5-7. In the camp of Israel the Reubenites, flanked by the descendants of Simeon and Gad, were situated on the east side of the tabernacle. When on the march this three-tribe division headed by Reuben followed the three-tribe division of Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. New 2. 10-16. 10. 14-20. This was also the order in which the tribes made their presentation offerings on the day the tabernacle was inaugurated. New 7. 1, 2, 10-47. When Korah the Levite rebelled against Moses, 3 Reubenites, On, the son of Peleth, along with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, joined in the revolt, charging Moses with trying to play the prince over them and with failing to bring them into a land flowing with milk and honey. Nemuel, the brother of Dathan and Abiram, apparently took no part in the revolt. New 16. 1, 12-14. 26. 8, 9. Jehovah showed that a revolt was actually disrespect against him. He caused the earth to open up and swallow the rebels and their families alive, together with all their belongings. New 16. 23-33. 11. 6. See Abiram number 1. Territory assignments. Shortly before Israel entered the Promised Land, the tribes of Reuben and Gad requested that they be given territory of the Jordan. The land had been acquired through the victory over the 2 kings Sihon and Og. They reasoned that it was ideal for them because they had large flocks and herds. Moses granted this request to them on half the tribe of Manasseh on one condition, that the fighting forces of these tribes also cross over the Jordan and assist the other tribes in the conquest of Canaan, a condition that the 2.5 tribes willingly met. New 32. 1-38. Jos 1. 12-18. 4. 12, 13. 12. 6. 13. 8-10. Reuben's territorial inheritance was thus settled even before the Israelites crossed the Jordan, Moses himself giving the southern portion of Sihon's conquered kingdom to this tribe. It extended from the torrent valley of Arnon, a natural boundary that separated this territory from Moab on the east, to just end of the Dead Sea. The land end of Reuben was given to the Gadites. New 34. 13-15. 3. 12, 16. 29. 8. Jos 13. 15-23. 18. 7. The territory of the Ammonites formed the boundary, with the Dead Sea and Jordan River on the west. Jos 15. 1, 6. 18. 11, 17. One of the 6 cities of refuge, Bezer, lay in Reuben's territory. This and other Reubenite cities were set aside for the use of the Levites. The 4. 41-43. Jos 20. 8. 21. 7, 36. 1 ch 6. 63, 78, 79. Moses directed that, once the Israelites reached the heart of Canaan, the tribe of Reuben, together with Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali, was to be represented on Mount Ebal for the reading of the maledictions and curses, with the rest of the tribes represented on Mount Gerizim for the pronouncing of blessings. The 27. 11-13 After Moses made these arrangements he blessed Reuben along with the rest of the tribes. To the Reubenites, Moses said, "Let Reuben live and not die off, and let his men not become few." 33. 1:6. At the end of Joshua's campaign in Canaan he called together the armed forces of Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh and, after commending them on keeping their promises to Moses, sent them home with his blessing. Judges 22. 1-8 When they reached the Jordan, they erected a huge altar on the western bank, which action, being at first misinterpreted by the other tribes, nearly resulted in a rupture of relations, even civil war. But when it was explained that the altar was not for sacrifices, but was for a witness of faithfulness between the tribes on both sides of the Jordan, the altar was given a name, likely witness, for, as they said, it is a witness between us that Jehovah is the true God. Judges 22. 9-34. Later history. Many years later, when no text to acute miritra longo, Revelation 797. Immediately adjacent to this strip on the north was Judah, with Reuben bordering next to Judah on the north. S 48. 6-22, 35 Also, the gate named Reuben on the inside of the holy city, Jehovah Shammah, was next to that named Judah. S 48. 31 Similarly, in John's vision of the sealing of the 12 tribes of spiritual Israel, Reuben is named second, after the tribe of Judah. Re 7. 4, 5. Reuel companion friend of God. 1. Second named son of Esau, by Ishmael's daughter Basemath. Reuel's own 4 sons became Edomite sheikhs. GE 36. 2-4, 10, 13, 17. 1 ch 1. 35, 37. 2. Moses' father-in-law, a priest of Midian. X2. 16-21. New 10. 29 Elsewhere called Jethro. See Jethro. 3. A Gadite whose son Eliasaph was tribal chieftain during the wilderness march. New 2. 14 The name is spelled Dale in its other occurrences. See Dale. 4. Ancestor of a Benjamite who lived in Jerusalem after the Babylonian exile. 1 ch 9. 3, 7, 8. Rumah, concubine of Abraham's brother Nahor. She gave birth to 4 sons. GE 22. 20, 24. Revelation. The Greek word calypsis thus translated denotes an uncovering or a disclosure and is often used regarding revelations of spiritual matters or of God's will and purposes. Lu 2. 32. 1 Co 14. 6, 26. 2 Co 12. 1, 7. Go 1. 12. 2. 2. F1. 17. Re 1. 1. Int the operation of God's Spirit makes such revelations possible. Concerning the revelation of the sacred secret, the Apostle Paul wrote, "In other generations this secret was not made known to the sons of men as it has now been revealed to his holy apostles and prophets by Spirit, namely, that people of the nations should be joint heirs and fellow members of the body and partakers with us of the promise in union with Christ Jesus through the good news." F3. 1-6. Row 16. 25. The Book of Acts forcefully confirms that this revelation